Jude Bellingham, who's fit and playing again for Real Madrid. Why is he not here?
I understand your focus on Jude, of course. First of all, he's a very special player, and for special players there can always be special rules. I get this, but for this camp we decided that we stick with our straightforward decision to invite the same team.
I don't think he was incorrect. I actually think the observation of Jude Bellingham's behaviour on the pitch, now he's parked it at his poor brother's door, but I think he probably harbours those opinions and those thoughts himself. Jude's behaviour, for me, is detrimental to the team, and it wasn't necessarily the word repulsive. I think we're all being blinded by this because of the strength of it.
What Tuchel's doing is best for both parties. You know, I don't think Bellingham's ready to play in the international stage. He's better off being back in Madrid and getting himself back to 100% fitness. So I don't see a problem with this whatsoever.
Real Madrid's 2024/25 campaign was a storm of frustration. No Champions League, no Copa, no joy. And in the center of it all, the golden boy of the Bernabeu was suddenly painted as the problem. Jude Bellingham brings absolutely nothing to this team, just a box camper waiting for tap-ins. Bellingham is exactly the kind of personality you do not want in your team. There's no link-up play, no passing, just ball hogging, an absolute fraud. They compared him to Pedri, saying the Spanish boy had football IQ while Jude only had hype. They mocked his 180 million euro valuation, said he was busy staining his white shorts just to look like he cared. Even England turned their backs, with Thomas Tuchel leaving him out of the national squad, a message that maybe the fairy tale was over. He wasn't the savior of Madrid anymore. He was the scapegoat of Madrid's collapse. But football never forgets the ones who rise twice. Because when the lights dimmed and the noise got louder, Jude Bellingham started writing a new story. Not about hype, not about headlines, but about resilience. This is how Jude Bellingham is silencing his doubters. The banners from 2024 still hung in the Santiago Bernabeu rafters. Reminders of a golden debut season when Jude Bellingham arrived from Dortmund and instantly conquered Spain. He had delivered the La Liga title, the Champions League, and stood shoulder to shoulder with Vinicius Jr. as Madrid's heartbeat. By the end of that year, he was La Liga's Player of the Season, winner of the Laureus Breakthrough Award, and a top 3 finisher in both the Ballon d'Or and FIFA the Best. The boy from Stourbridge had become the Prince of Madrid, but the magic didn't last. The 2024/25 campaign began with the same brightness. A European Super Cup victory over Atalanta, a brilliant streak of 6 consecutive league games with goals, and the December Player of the Month award. Then, slowly, the rhythm cracked. Injuries struck across the squad, 50 plus in all, with Militao, Carvajal, and Camavinga taking turns on the treatment table. Matches that once looked routine turned into struggles, and the momentum that defined Madrid's dominance drained away. They finished second in La Liga, runners-up in the Copa del Rey, bowed out in the Champions League quarterfinals, and even a record-breaking Intercontinental Cup couldn't sweeten the taste. For Real Madrid, second is failure, and when a giant falls, the world points fingers. The spotlight turned ruthless. Mbappe's arrival couldn't stop the collapse. Ancelotti's second era ended in frustration, and every conversation needed a scapegoat. Somehow, the narrative found its way to Jude Bellingham, the same midfielder who had been the face of their renaissance a year earlier. Rival fans called him overhyped, media panels whispered that he'd peaked at 21, and social networks became a coliseum of criticism. Omo, the Jude Bellingham PR, is the greatest in football history. He was mid all season yet still valued at 180 million euros. As Madrid's standards dropped, so did his image. Some compared him to Pedri, another young promise with hype. And when England's new boss, Thomas Tuchel, left him out of the first post-Euro squad, it felt like a public verdict. The golden boy had lost his glow. Inside Madrid's walls, the truth was less dramatic but more painful. That left shoulder, the same one he'd been strapping since November 2023, had finally given up. On the 16th of July 2025, Bellingham went under the knife to repair the long-standing dislocation that had haunted 2 seasons of football. He was expected to miss 3 months, to return sometime in October. The outside world called it a setback. Inside Valdebebas, it was seen as a necessary reset, a step back before revival. But perception moves faster than recovery. The headlines called him a one-season wonder. Commentators claimed Madrid had built a marketing machine, not a midfielder. The knives were out and the noise was deafening. Yet while critics typed, Jude Bellingham trained. Quietly, relentlessly. The boy who'd once dominated Spain's biggest stage now worked in silence, every rep a reminder of who he really was. Because Madrid's poor season hadn't been his fault, it was a collective fracture. But when he finally returned, the weight of redemption would fall squarely on his shoulders. The same shoulder that had just been rebuilt. And that's where the story turns, because this is not about how Jude Bellingham fell. It's about how he's silencing everyone who said he wouldn't rise again. September 20th, 2025, Real Madrid versus Espanyol, and after 2 months of silence and scar tissue, Jude Bellingham stepped to the touchline. The fourth official's board lit up, ovation, camera flashes, a stadium standing for a cameo. This wasn't a night for miracles, it was a night to feel grass again. Madrid were already in control, 2-0, on goals from Eder Militao and Kylian Mbappe, the kind of bread and butter win that calms title talk, with Madrid bossing 72% possession, outshooting Espanyol 16-8 and allowing just one shot on target. This was Xabi Alonso's team playing with adult composure. Jude's job was simple: touch the tempo, press the lane, taste the game. He came on late, a symbolic return more than a tactical swing, but the sound told the real story. Even his warm-up drew a roar. The entrance drew a wave. Reporters noted he'd made his long-awaited return and was met with a massive round of applause, the kind of welcome that says, "We didn't forget." On the chalkboard, Madrid's control was boring in the best way. Alonso's block kept Espanyol outside the box until garbage time. The press traps funneled play into Militao's zone, and Vinicius kept tilting the field for Mbappe's runs. Match charts told the same tale. Madrid's territorial squeeze, 5 shots on frame to Espanyol's 1, corners 5-3, and a clean sheet that never really looked threatened. In a night designed for rhythm, not heroics, Jude's cameo was a proof-of-life ping. Movement between the lines, a couple of decoy runs to open the half space, and that trademark forward body shape that says, "Give it, I'll play on the half turn." Minimal minutes, maximum meaning. On the 23rd of September 2025, Real Madrid traveled to face Levante UD and recorded a 4-1 away win. Madrid dominated possession, 62.6%, and outshot Levante 24-11. Bellingham came on in the 75th minute, replacing Federico Valverde. In his minutes on the pitch, Bellingham's impact was subtle but telling. He helped circulate possession, dropped into half spaces to draw defenders. The player rating site gave him a 7 out of 10, noting instantly brought composure and control, helping Madrid close out the game. But football is as much about what you're not saying as what you're doing, and just 4 days later the narrative shifted. On the 27th of September 2025, Real Madrid faced their city rivals Atletico Madrid and were humiliated in a 5-2 defeat. Madrid's perfect start ruined, and the performance raked raw. The opposition dominated early, Madrid's structure collapsed, and Bellingham played in a full role but offered almost nothing. Reports rated him a 3 out of 10, saying he looked heavy-legged and had almost no impact. Tactically, the stats told the tale. Madrid's press failed to win first 50 midfield duels. They lost territory in the middle third, and Bellingham's characteristic late runs into the box scarcely registered. His movements lagged the ball. His touch map evidenced fewer touches than usual in attacking zones. The critics pounced. "Still rehabbing reputation, not match fitness," they wrote. The calendar flipped quickly, and with it, Madrid's challenge changed shape. After his mixed league performances, Jude Bellingham found himself in the middle of 4 games that would either blur his comeback or sharpen it. The sequence started in Kazakhstan. September 30th, 2025, Real Madrid traveled to face Kairat Almaty in the Champions League and won 5-0. Despite the scoreline, Bellingham didn't start. Reports noted he was not in the starting 11 for tactical reasons. While the team dominated, Kylian Mbappe's hat trick leading the night, the context for Jude was different. Reintegration, not rewriting. The clean sheet and win lifted the mood, but the game lacked the personal shift he needed. Touches still fewer than his peak, awareness high but timing still a beat behind. Then came October 4th, 2025, at home to Villarreal. Madrid won 3-1, goals from Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe steering the result. Jude started this time. On the stats sheet, 63 minutes played, 81% pass accuracy, 2 key passes, 1 shot blocked. The narrative, he looked sharper, but he still lacked his former spark in the final third. Crowd reaction, polite applause, not roaring approval. Next match, October 19th, 2025, away at Getafe. Madrid took a 1-0 win. This was grind football, not glam. Jude came on at around 55 minutes. He was involved in 14 touches, made 1 successful dribble, but key involvement remained low. The fans noticed the returning tag still hung heavy, and media lines whispered serviceable rather than dominant. Then came the night that changed things. October 22nd, 2025, Real Madrid versus Juventus in the Champions League. The Bernabeu lit up. Juventus came in confident. Madrid needed the win. Jude Bellingham scored the only goal in a 1-0 victory, slotting home from a rebound after Vinicius' shot hit the post. This wasn't just a goal, it was a signature moment. In that match, the analytics told the story. 72% possession, Madrid outshot Juventus 23-7. For Jude, 40 touches, 92% pass accuracy, 4 progressive passes, and most tellingly, the goal came from his run into the box at minute 57. Real Total named him Player of the Match. Media shifted, the one-season wonder line briefly went quiet. He'd been judged for rhythm, now he was proving presence. But off the pitch, the work wasn't done. The shoulder scar still under his shirt, the 10 to 12 week layoff a recent memory. Earlier in the summer, he'd admitted his 2024/25 campaign wasn't a disaster, but that he wanted more. Madrid's season still had mountains to climb. But for Jude, the Juventus goal was the first summit of his comeback. The rest of the season would test endurance, not just entry. At the end of the sequence, the message was clear. He hadn't simply returned, he had arrived. And yet, the work ahead remained, because in the game of greatness, one goal isn't a certificate, it's the invitation to a marathon. 26th of October, 2025, Santiago Bernabeu. Floodlights cutting through a humid Madrid night, and you could almost feel the tension in the air, because this wasn't just another Clásico, it was a reckoning. Real Madrid had lost 4 straight league Clásicos before this. For a club built on dominance, that's humiliation. The fans didn't just want revenge, they demanded it. And after the criticism from both rival fans and rival players, Xabi Alonso's men needed a statement game to reassert who they were. For Jude Bellingham, this was the stage where he had first become a legend a year ago, scoring twice at the Olympic Stadium in his debut Clásico. But this time, the spotlight carried a question. Could he still do it? The opening whistle sounded like a challenge. Barcelona pressed high, forcing Madrid into early errors. Flick's men wanted chaos. Alonso wanted control. By the 20th minute, it was clear this would be tactical trench warfare. Not the silky Clásico of old, but a battle of endurance and precision. Then came the first roar. In the 22nd minute, Jude drifted between the half line, scanned once, and threaded a pass through 3 blue and red shirts. Mbappe, in full stride, finished from close range. 1-0 Madrid. It was vintage Bellingham, not just scoring, but creating control. But the joy didn't last long. Just 4 minutes later, Barcelona's Fermin Lopez struck back, capitalizing on a rare lapse in Madrid's backline. The Bernabeu groaned. This was the moment where last season's insecurities usually crept in, when Madrid's energy waned and the critics sharpened their knives. Not this time. Madrid regrouped, they pressed, they hunted, and Jude, wearing the number 5 of Zidane, started orchestrating again. He dropped deep to collect, combined with Tchouaméni and Güler, and began dictating the tempo like a conductor rediscovering his rhythm. Every touch had purpose, every glance had calculation. By halftime, the momentum had shifted. Madrid led the shot count 12-6, with 2.1 expected goals to Barcelona's 0.7, and the Bernabeu began to believe. Then in the 43rd minute, the moment came. Vinicius burst down the left, squared low, the ball deflected, skipped across the box, and there was Jude, arriving like a shadow at the back post. One step, one swing, one goal. 2-1 Real Madrid. The stadium erupted. He stood still by the post, no smile, no words, just a cold stare into the crowd, eyes locked on the fans in silence. This time it wasn't just about arrival, it was about survival. The halftime whistle felt like vindication. Madrid's numbers at the break: 67% possession, pass accuracy at 91%, 5 shots on target to Barcelona's 2. But more importantly, the intangible metric, belief, was back. In the second half, Barcelona threw everything. Lamine dropped deep, Pedri probed, Rashford tried to isolate Valverde, but Alonso's Madrid were compact, calm, ruthless. Camavinga and Chouameni shielded, while Jude kept gliding between lines, switching from attacker to controller seamlessly. By full time, the stats told a clear story. XG, Madrid 3.63, Barcelona 1.03, shots 21-13, touches in the opposition box, Madrid 37, Barcelona 19, and Jude Bellingham 53 touches, 89.8% passing accuracy, 1 goal, 1 assist, 5 recoveries, and 2 key passes. His influence stretched across every blade of grass. Pedri's late red card in stoppage time sealed the frustration for Barca, but the story wasn't about them anymore. It was about the man in white who had turned the noise into music again. When the whistle blew, Jude stood still, smiling to himself. A year ago, he was football's golden boy. Now, after surgery, criticism, and exile from the England squad, he was proving something far deeper: resilience. Post-match, his words were clean, smooth, but heavy. It was an important win, a good result, and a team performance. I just keep working, Alonso said. He had turned doubt into fuel, and the fans, they sang his name again, because this wasn't just a Clásico win, it was a reclamation. The night Jude Bellingham reminded the football world that form is temporary, but class, courage, and Madrid DNA, that's forever. Football has a short memory. One season, you're a revelation. The next, a rumor. One injury, and they forget the nights you carried the team. But the truly great ones, they don't argue. They don't tweet. They don't beg for respect. They just wait. And when the moment comes, they answer louder than the critics ever spoke. That's what Jude Bellingham did. From the surgery bed in July to the Clásico in October, from being dropped by his country to being reborn as Madrid's rhythm, his comeback wasn't a movie montage. It was work, sweat, and silence. He's still only 22, already carrying the weight of Real Madrid and the hope of England, and yet he plays like someone who's already lived this game twice, because he understands something most don't. Greatness isn't proven in a season, it's proven in what you do after the season that breaks you, and right now Jude Bellingham is proving it. One match, one goal, one quiet celebration at a time. The kid from Stourbridge who dreamt of wearing Zidane's number 5 has done it again. He silenced the noise, rewrote the narrative, and reminded the world that class doesn't vanish. It just waits for its cue. This is how Jude Bellingham silenced his doubters.